I love all of the academic aspects to our faith. I think they're brilliant. But what would you say to someone who goes, yeah, like that's all good, Wes, and we're glad that you're super smart, but man, you have a bias because you're starting with your own predetermined dogmas of being a Christian who already holds these theological views, and that therefore distorts your academic approach. What would your feedback be to someone like that? And that has been a critique of many apologists and scholars.
There's probably something to that. Yeah, I am biased. I just think that my bias is true. So, of course, we're all biased, though, right? Like, if you come into this conversation with the assumption of naturalism, you're also biased. So, I think it's less of a question of are we biased and more of a question of what are our biases and how do we factor those biases into the conversation of what we're talking about. Because we're all going to say something that is influenced by our particular worldview. So if we assume that miracles are impossible because they violate the laws of nature,
Right.
vis-a-vis Hume, we're going to then conclude that anything we look at that could be maybe concluded as a miracle, well, we're just going to write that off entirely, even if the inference to the best explanation is that, say, Jesus rose from the dead. Well, that obviously can't happen because that's the least likely option because miracles don't happen. And I think that's coming from just an opposite bias. So yes, I am biased. However, I would like to think that I still let the evidence dictate where I draw conclusions in light of my bias. And try to figure out where my bias is actually playing into the conversation. Because yes, I believe that the Bible is inspired. I believe it's the word of God. But that doesn't then lead me to say something like, well, then all of these textual variances, they need also to be inspired. Or that something like the doctrine of inspiration is affected by that. Because that's not how the doctrine of inspiration works. So I understand where someone is coming from when they say, well, you're just a Christian, so you're obviously going to look at the text a certain way. And I think that maybe I should look at the text a certain way. If I'm a Christian, then I should at least follow through with that consistently and say, well, yeah, that's going to dictate the way that I understand something. And there's going to be a portion of my life where I'm going to need, for the sake of my own sort of spiritual well-being, to detach from studying the Word of God and look at it devotionally in order for it to actually speak to me. Because I don't just believe that it's text on a page.
That's good.
Right? I believe that there's something else going on there, in the same way that there's this great illustration, I think it was John Lennox, who talked about the fact that if you're just looking at something scientifically and you hand me a page of the Bible and say, what's going on here? And you go, oh, it's very interesting. You know, I'm looking at this and the chemical compounds of the ink are coming together to make this page. And, you know, look at these, how the strokes are made. And then it's like, well, okay, that's one explanation. The other explanation is that there are actually words on a page, so read them and explain them to me. Right? Like if I come in and there's a kettle boiling and you say, well, what's happening there? And I say, well, so steam happens because, you know, when water gets really hot and the molecules are moving, you're like, no, or I'm making tea.
No, that's good.
There are two explanations for what's going on. How do we explain I mean, I might be going into this too far, but, you know, if you have a Ford Mustang in your driveway and you say, can you explain to me what's going on there? And I say, well, actually, there was this guy named Henry Ford, and he invented the internal combustion engine, and the internal combustion engine looks like it works like this way, and I explain all of the mechanics of it. That could be one explanation, or another explanation could be this is a really cool car, and it goes fast, and I like it.
No, that's great. Okay, so you said something about our bias do play into things. And you kind of alluded to the naturalistic worldview where miracles are not possible. You've experienced a miracle when you were a child. I think, is it fair to use the word miracle?
Yeah.
So if someone experiences a miracle, or at the very least what they perceive to be a miracle, that is going to then influence how they go through the rest of their life.
Sure.
So talk a little bit about what that was. What were the odds of you walking if it wasn't a miracle? And how did that frame your faith?
Yeah, so just before my 11th birthday, it's actually coming up because it's February 8th is what in my household we call Miracle Day.
Wow.
Because on January 8th, I woke up and couldn't feel my legs. And on February 8th, I got out of that same year, so 1 month exactly to the day, I woke up, got out of bed, walked over to my wheelchair and sat down. And so I experienced what I truly believe to be a supernatural miracle. And it wasn't my parents or my family or my friends who used the word miracle. I had a scheduled appointment after that where I walked into the hospital, and it was the pediatric neurologist who said, "This is miraculous. We have no medical explanation."
And what was the condition that you had?
It was called acute transverse myelitis.
And do people start walking after they get that? Or what is the likelihood of them walking again?
Yeah, so it's not impossible, but it's related to the quickness of the condition. So it's related to things like Guillain-Barré or even MS.
Okay.
And so transverse myelitis is not as rare as acute transverse myelitis, but as far as my condition was concerned, the paralysis was instantaneous because I'd gone down for a nap and I woke up 15, 30 minutes later and I was paralyzed from the waist down.
Wow.
And so the slower the paralysis takes effect, the easier the recovery process is.
The more likely they can turn it around.
Yeah.
But yours happened fast.
Mine happened instantly. And so how it was explained to us was that because of how quickly it happened, that's the acute transverse myelitis, of the swelling on the myelin sheath at the base of my spine, which cut off the communication between my brain and my legs. Because that happened so quickly, the chances of there actually being some recovery, never mind a reversal, was slim to none.
Wow.
So the prognosis was like, you need to basically accept that you will be a paraplegic for the rest of your life.
Wow.
So there was some chance that I would be able to, say, walk with a walker, but the feeling in my legs would never actually recover fully. And they didn't think that I would walk again. Never mind do something like run.
Yeah.
So when I walked into the hospital and then I ran down the hall, they said, we don't know how to explain this.
And they used the word miracle.
They did use the word miracle.
Wow.
Yeah. And they were not believers.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much for checking out the video. Please be sure to comment below and subscribe and all that good stuff. And check out this other video that YouTube seems to be recommending just for you. Let me know if they nailed it. All right? I'll see you over there. Peace.